The night of June 5, 1944, dozens of transport ships slowly move across the dark waters of the English Channel. On board are thousands of American soldiers. By tomorrow morning, they will storm the beaches of France, Omaha Beach, and take part in one of the bloodiest battles in history. Many of them sit quietly, lost in their own thoughts. Some stare at photographs of their wives. Some whisper the names of their children, but 23-year-old Tom Miller sits silently in a corner, gripping his M1 Garand rifle tightly in his hands. His eyes are distant, as if he is somewhere else, back home, in the quiet farmlands of Ohio. Slowly, he reaches into the chest pocket of his jacket and pulls out an old, worn-out silver half-coin. The coin is scratched and aged, but it still shines faintly in the dim light. His fellow soldier, Sergeant Jack Riley, a heavy-set, battle-hardened veteran, takes a drag from his cigar and looks over at Tom. Sergeant Riley, in a rough voice. "What's that, Tom? Some kind of lucky charm? If it is, you're gonna need it tomorrow." Tom's eyes grow slightly moist. His voice carries both sadness and determination. Tom, softly but firmly, "No, Sergeant, it's not just a coin. It's a promise. A promise so powerful that I'll walk straight into death tomorrow if I have to. It's the promise that's kept me alive this long." Sergeant Riley opens his mouth as if to say something, but stops. The pain and determination in Tom's eyes say enough. Some stories, only time can tell. 9 years earlier, Tom's childhood had been buried deep in the rotten dust of the Great Depression. He grew up on a small, dry farm in Ohio. His father was a farmer whose crops had been destroyed during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Money was always scarce. New shoes were a luxury the family never saw. Even putting enough food on the table was a daily struggle. Tom learned two things very early in life: hunger and hard work. But inside that thin, exhausted boy burned an extraordinary hunger, not for food, for knowledge. He would work 12 hours a day in the fields, sweating under the burning sun, guiding the plow and driving the oxen. And after sunset, when the day's labor was finally over, he would sit under the faint light of a chimney lamp and read old, torn books borrowed from the local library. Tom had a dream to escape poverty, to build a better life, not just for himself, but for his family. And he knew there was only one path forward: education. Across the Atlantic Ocean, on the other side of the world, a girl named Elara Rosen was growing up. She was the only daughter of an extremely wealthy and respected Jewish family in Berlin. Her home was not just a house. It was a world filled with silk, music, art, and books. Elara had never known poverty. But in 1933, when Adolf Hitler came to power, the air in Germany began to change, darkly. Swastika flags started appearing across the streets. Gestapo vehicles became a common sight. By 1934, new laws targeting Jewish citizens began spreading throughout Germany. Nazi propaganda blamed Jews for every problem the country faced. Elara's father was a wise and far-sighted man. He could see what was coming, and he made a painful decision. In 1935, he sent 16-year-old Elara to the United States, to Ohio, so she could continue her education in safety. His plan was simple. Once the situation in Germany improved, he would bring his daughter back home. But what he did not know was this: the moment when things would improve would never come. Now the story had returned to Ohio, where 18-year-old Tom, who had earned a place at university through scholarships and part-time jobs, was working as a janitor in the library, mopping floors to pay his college fees and send some money back home. One quiet evening, as he silently cleaned the floor, his eyes fell on a girl sitting alone at a table. It was Elara, black hair, deep eyes, and a strange sadness on her face that Tom couldn't quite understand. She was beautiful, but in her eyes lived a silent fear and loneliness for the family she had left far behind. Tom loved reading books, but he never had enough money to buy them. Elara noticed this. Every evening when the library was about to close, she would quietly leave a few books on her table so Tom could read them after finishing his work. She knew how much he loved books. What began as a silent conversation through books slowly turned into friendship, and then into a deep, quiet love. Tom showed her the wide, endless fields of Ohio, where the sunset looked as if the sky itself had caught fire. Elara told Tom stories of European history, music, and art, things Tom had never even imagined before. 4 years passed. Their love only grew stronger. Tom would often tell Elara, "One day I'll earn enough money so you never have to go back to Berlin. We'll build a small house here in Ohio, somewhere peaceful, somewhere happy." Elara would simply smile and rest her head on his shoulder. In those days, they believed their love could overcome anything in the world. But fate had something else planned. On a terrible afternoon in August 1939, Elara received a telegram from Germany. Her father was gravely ill, and the policies of Adolf Hitler had made life for Jews not just dangerous anymore, but deadly. Elara had no choice. She had to return to Berlin one last time to see her father and be with her sick mother. Their goodbye at the train station was heartbreaking. It was raining, as if even the sky was mourning their separation. Tom took a shining silver coin from his pocket and with all his strength snapped it into 2 pieces. He placed one half into Elara's trembling hand and kept the other half with himself. Tom, his voice shaking, eyes filled with tears. "No matter how big this world is, Elara, no matter how deep the oceans are, as long as I have this half coin, I will find you. I promise." Elara boarded the train in tears, her heart shattered into pieces. The train slowly pulled away from the station, taking Elara with it and carrying away a beautiful dream that she and Tom had shared. Elara arrived in Berlin on the Triu August 31st, 1939. And the very next day, September 1st, 1939, Adolf Hitler invaded Poland. World War II began. A blood-stained line was drawn across the map of the world, and Elara became trapped forever in the darkness of Nazi Germany. Tom had no idea that the last time he saw Elara at that station would truly be the last time. And now, if he ever wanted to find her again, he would have to fight an entire world to do it.
When Elara reached Berlin, her world collapsed almost immediately. Her father, already weakened by illness and the crushing pressure of Nazi persecution, died just a few days after she arrived. The shock had simply been too much for him. Soon after his death, the Nazi regime confiscated everything the family owned. Their luxurious home, their bank accounts, their jewelry, everything was seized and labeled Jewish property. Elara and her mother were forced to sew a yellow Star of David onto their clothing, a humiliating symbol designed to mark Jews as inferior. Tom's letters stopped arriving. Just like that, her connection to the outside world was gone. Every night in the darkness, Elara would hold the half of the silver coin Tom had given her. She would kiss it and cry quietly. Eventually, even the tears stopped coming, but the pain inside her heart remained just as deep. She believed Tom would come for her one day. But how? The war was swallowing the entire world. Meanwhile, in Ohio, Tom lived with a different kind of suffering. Every single day he stood outside the post office, hoping for a letter from Berlin. 1 year passed, then another. No letter ever came. Each passing day carved another hole in his heart. His friends and professors began telling him harsh truths. "She was Jewish, Tom. In Germany. Jews probably aren't even alive anymore. You have to forget her." But Tom refused. He kept the other half of the silver coin close to his chest. Every night he fell asleep with the coin clenched tightly in his hand, as if he were still holding Elara's hand. He had made a promise, and Tom never broke a promise. Then came December 7th, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor. America exploded with anger. The entire nation burned with a desire for revenge. When Tom read the newspaper that morning, he felt the same fire rising inside him. Like thousands of other young Americans, he wanted to fight for his country. Deep inside, there was another reason. If he joined the army, he could go to Europe, and if he reached Europe, maybe he could find Elara. The very next morning, Tom left the university and enlisted in the United States Army Infantry. His reason wasn't just patriotism, it was an unbreakable determination to find Elara. Meanwhile, in Berlin, the situation for Jews had become far worse. Elara and her mother were rounded up with thousands of other Jewish families. They were packed like animals into crowded cattle cars and sent toward Poland. Their destination was Auschwitz. Hundreds of people were crammed into a single rail car with no food and almost no water. Weeks passed in suffocating darkness. By the time the train finally arrived, many people were already dead. When they reached Auschwitz, the prisoners were forced into a terrifying selection line. A cruel Nazi officer pointed people in two directions, left or right. Left meant the gas chambers. Right meant temporary survival. When Elara and her mother reached the officer, he glanced at them briefly and pointed her mother to the left. Elara screamed and clung desperately to her, but a rifle butt smashed into her shoulder and knocked her violently to the ground. Her mother was dragged away toward death. That was the last time Elara ever saw her. Elara herself was sent to the right, not because of mercy, because she spoke fluent English, French, and German. The Nazi officers needed translators for camp documents and visiting officials. In a place built for death, that skill saved her life. But survival there was worse than death. The cold was unbearable. Hunger never ended. Disease spread everywhere. The smell of death never left the air. Slowly, Elara stopped feeling like a human being. She became something else, a machine that simply continued breathing. Every day she watched people die. Sometimes she thought about ending her own life, but each time she reached that point, she would touch something hidden inside the sole of her torn shoe, the half-silver coin. The cold metal against her fingers reminded her of something, of someone. "No, Tom will come," she whispered to herself. He promised. The coin was no longer just a piece of metal. It was her last piece of hope. Then came June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest military invasion in history. Early in the morning, 6:30 a.m., in the cold waters of the English Channel, Tom sat inside a Higgins landing boat heading toward Omaha Beach in Normandy, France. The ramp dropped, and instantly German MG-42 machine guns opened fire. Soldiers called it Hitler's buzzsaw. Bullets tore through the air like a storm of steel. The soldier standing beside Tom had his head blown apart. The water turned red with blood. Tom jumped into the water, but his entire platoon was being shredded by gunfire. Bullets screamed past his ears. Somehow he managed to crawl behind a German bunker. His body was shaking violently. Not from fear, but from the horror of what he had just seen. Then he touched his chest, where the coin was hidden. He remembered the promise he had made to Elara. His shaking hands slowly steadied. With a wild scream, Tom jumped back into the storm of bullets and charged forward. He wasn't just fighting to liberate France. He was fighting to open the road to Germany. He was fighting to reach Elara. Through the brutal winter of 1944, during the terrible Battle of the Bulge, Tom's 42nd Rainbow Division slowly pushed deeper toward Germany. Every step forward was met with snow, blood, and death. Soldiers froze in the cold and starved in the forests, but their goal was clear: bring Nazi Germany to its knees. Meanwhile, in January 1945, as the Soviet army approached Auschwitz, the Nazis began evacuating the camp. Elara and thousands of skeletal prisoners were forced to march through the snow in freezing temperatures. History would later call this the Death March. Anyone who stopped walking was shot immediately. Elara's feet bled through her torn shoes. Her body had almost no strength left. She collapsed, again and again. But every time she fell, she touched the coin hidden inside her shoe. The cold metal forced her to stand up again. After months of marching through snow and death, she finally arrived at another camp inside Germany, Dachau. By then, she barely looked human anymore. She was little more than a skeleton that could still breathe. Her hope had almost disappeared. She no longer believed Tom would come. She had become something between life and death, a body that simply continued to exist. On April 29, 1945, Tom's 42nd Rainbow Division breaks through the iron gates of the Dachau concentration camp and storms inside. The sight inside the camp shakes even the strongest American soldiers, men who have already witnessed bloodshed and death throughout the war. Some of them drop their weapons, others turn away and begin to vomit. Train wagons are filled with corpses. Those who are still alive look like walking skeletons, their hollow eyes holding nothing but emptiness. In front of them lies one of the darkest chapters in human history. Tom runs through the camp like a madman, rushing from one barrack to another. He turns over every skeletal face he sees, shouting desperately with a voice filled with pain and hope, "Elara! Elara! Are you here?" But no answer comes. A medical officer tries to stop him and shouts, "Soldier, don't go into the typhus ward. There is only death and terrible infection there. We don't want to lose anyone else." But Tom does not stop. He pushes forward and enters the dark, foul-smelling barrack, where death itself seems to be breathing its last. In the deepest corner of the barrack, lying on a wooden plank on the ground, there is a girl. Her head is completely shaved. Her eyes have sunk deep into her face, and her body probably weighs no more than 30 kilograms. She is standing on the edge of death, breathing with great difficulty. Tom is about to turn away in despair when suddenly he notices something. The girl's hand is tightly clenched against her chest. Slowly, her fist loosens a little, and something can be seen inside it. Tom's heart suddenly stops. He falls to his knees. With trembling hands, he gently opens her fist completely. Inside it lies a rusted half-silver coin, blackened by blood and sweat. The same coin he had given to Elara 9 years ago. Tears burst from Tom's eyes like a flood, and his voice chokes with emotion. He whispers with a trembling voice. Very slowly, Elara opens her dim, blurred eyes. For a moment, she believes she has already died, and this must be some dream of heaven. Is that Tom? Has he really come? Tom quickly reaches into his pocket and pulls out his own shining half of the coin, then gently places it together with the dirty, darkened half in Elara's hand. After 9 long years, the coin becomes whole again. From Elara's dry, lifeless eyes, a warm tear slowly rolls down and falls onto Tom's hand. It is not just a tear of sorrow, but a tear of faith and freedom. She tries to speak, but her voice is barely more than a whisper. "Tom, you came." Tom gently pulls that fragile skeletal body into his strong chest, holding her carefully as if she might break if he hugged her too tightly. He holds her close, pouring all his pain and fear into that embrace, and crying like a child, he whispers, "I told you, no matter how big the world is, no matter how deep hell becomes, I will find you. I promised." In that moment, all the horrors of war, all the suffering, and all the 9 years of waiting finally come to an end. It is not just the reunion of two lovers, it is the victory of humanity, the victory of hope. The war finally ends. Elara spends many months recovering in an American Army hospital. Auschwitz had damaged her body so severely that she would never be able to become a mother. But Tom never cared about that. For him, Elara was the most precious part of his life. He brings her back to the quiet farmland of Ohio, the same place where they once dreamed about a golden future together. They marry in a small church, with only a few close friends and the remaining members of their family present. And even today, if you visit that old farmhouse in Ohio, you will find a small glass frame hanging on the wall. Inside it is the silver coin, its two halves joined together again. For the world, it is just an ordinary coin from the 1930s. But for Tom and Elara, it is proof that Hitler's bullets, gas chambers, death marches, and all the cruelty in the world could not destroy a true promise, unbreakable faith, and real love. Their story remains a symbol of the indomitable spirit of humanity, the power that keeps the flame of hope alive even in the deepest darkness.